All right, so we're going to do a class on the menstrual cycle, and it's funny, I'm a guy, so I don't have a lot of personal experience with this topic per se, but I do have a wife, I got a couple girls, but they're 6 and 4, so they haven't experienced any of this yet. But as a healthcare practitioner, I will say that easily over 80% of the people I see are women. That's why I'm not saying never, but we probably won't have a men's event at Spirit of Health. Not that I don't love men, but they just they don't show up. They're just kind of stubborn and they think they're okay. And even when they're really dying, they still think they're okay. So so I love working with women. It's mostly what I've worked with for 10 years are women. So I have learned a lot. And I have a little introduction here. I'm going to go over 4 signs to consider related to your menstrual cycle. And one thing that's interesting about this is when I first met Jennifer, who's now my wife, she had not had a menstrual cycle in 2 years. And that is all too common today. Irregular cycles, painful cycles, not having a cycle. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think what happens a lot of times is what's maybe not right and what's not normal becomes the normal. And so now you think that that's okay and that's right and that's the way it's supposed to be. Like I still hear that the pregnant women who think something's wrong with them when they don't have any morning sickness or nausea because the doctor said, unless you have morning sickness or nausea, there's a problem with your pregnancy. Where does that logic come from, But I think we're just so used to having so many issues with hormones and with the menstrual cycle that we tend to see abnormal things as normal. But I believe they're a sign. So I just want to start with the introduction that a woman's menstrual cycle is normal, right? You're created by God to have children, which is an honor. And I love working with women because it's understanding that menstrual cycle as a key to health, a key to if you're balanced or not balanced. So I believe that it's not only a sign of fertility necessarily, but also just a good indicator of overall health. So when I see women who have issues or irregularities with their cycle, one of the ways I check their progress and see how they're doing, and I say, hey, why don't you come back once a month? Let's see how you're doing. Why would I say come back once a month? Right? I mean, because it's such a good indicator are they getting better related to their menstrual cycle, or things not getting better, or they seem to be getting worse. So it's a good indicator. Menopause is also normal. It's normal in a woman's 50s. It's not necessarily normal before that, but again, it can vary depending on genetics and lifestyle and different choices we make in our life. But it's not necessarily a good sign when you go into early menopause. I believe women were designed by God to have children up until menopause. Not all the fear-based stuff you hear out there about, oh, you turned 40, you shouldn't have any kids now. Well, my wife's 40. We're not going to stop having kids. We're not going to be worried about that. And what I said in here is I said it's not about a woman's age. Is it about a woman's health? So I know lots of women who have had children in their 40s. Who knows somebody who's had a child in their 40s? Hallelujah. Anybody here who's had a child in their 40s? Hallelujah. 2 of them. Woo! Come on. So I believe that should be the norm. But again, we have to do something about it. It's kind of like what Jeff said if you were here for the Mad Hippie class, that God designed the body to heal itself, but we have to help it. we can't just assume everything's going to take care of itself. We actually have to do things to heal the body, to restore the menstrual cycle, to cleanse the body, to eat right, to feed it the right things. And so that's really what I want to focus on in this class, is just these 4 signs, I think, just tells us a lot about where you're at related to your cycle, and understanding, again, can be a great indicator on where you're at with your health. I love the stories. I could tell you so many stories. I had a gal who had a painful, irregular menstrual cycle for 20 years. In fact, when it started at the age of 13, it's all her parents ever knew. And we started working together, and I don't even remember what all she did. She did some stuff that we're going to talk about probably in here, but whatever she did, she had a couple cycles in a row that were pain-free. And she joked about how when she called her parents and told her, they literally did not believe her. Because that's all they've known, is her suffering through her menstrual cycle. And this is what I hear a lot, and I love it, is when we start doing these things, women, because, well before the bleeding actually starts, like, you're feeling it. There's stuff going on, right? Well, what I hear, again, when women start to get healthier is that they're working into their cycle and they didn't realize it. They didn't even know. All of a sudden, well, hey, it started. But they didn't have all those symptoms or all those issues for days ahead of time. That all kind of went away. And so again, these are just indicators to know kind of where you're at. So the first one is consistency. And I'm talking about consistency related to time and the number of days. So you'll read different things out there. There's a little bit of a range. Some say like 26 to 33. Some say 28 to 33. I feel like it's probably 28 to 32, somewhere in there. And I met women who are like clockwork every 28 days, like clockwork. Every 31 days, like clockwork. So if it's 28 days, 1 month, and then 33 days the next month, I would consider that irregular. Now, it might be 28, it might be 32, but it should be consistent each month. And I've met a lot of women who are, they'll have a cycle and then 2 weeks later start another one, or skip a month. Or, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, either yourself or, with people you know. Again, it's just far too common these days. And again, just like my wife, had not had a menstrual cycle in 2 years. Now, how does that make you feel as a woman when you're not having a menstrual cycle? Like, is there something wrong with me? Am I ever going to have children? I mean, again, that's a normal thing that God gave you that is an indicator for, your health. So I can just see how that can be a struggle, possibly, just for my wife, being in her early 30s, not having a menstrual cycle in 2 years, wondering, is she going to even be able to have children? I can attest that she's able to have children, right? Because we have 3, and they're 6, 4, and Nathan will be 2 in about 5 days, 6 days. So, and we started late. I'm 44, and my wife's 40. I have friends I went to high school with, and all their children are graduating high school. What? So God was smart. He knew I had a lot of maturing to do before I should ever have kids. Okay? All right. So a lot of truth to that. I'm very thankful for the timing. I really am, just with what the Lord's doing with us right now. So B, a menstrual cycle that's less than 25 days, that's kind of the marker, is a sign that most likely the woman isn't ovulating. It can be a low progesterone and or an estrogen dominance issue. And if you've heard of this estrogen dominance issue, it's a big deal. A lot of times it's a combination of both. A lot of times women are low progesterone and estrogen dominant, which is why they're having a lot of issues and irregularities with their cycle. If you want to hear something scary, this is true. But a big article came out a few years ago that the Seine River, who runs through Paris, and I've been to Paris 3 times, it's a beautiful place and it's a beautiful river. The fish there and the frogs were all turning female. There were almost no males left, and it's because of all the chemicals they dump into the river. Because these chemicals have an estrogenic effect that changes what would be male hormones into female hormones. And so when you eat hormone-filled meat and dairy, if you're not being cautious about what you eat, if you're not making sure everything's hormone-free, antibiotic-free, herbicides, pesticides, women have no idea how many estrogenic compounds are in the makeup and the things that they put on their skin. And so this is why we need to go clean, and we need to get these things out of our bodies because they're not designed to go into our bodies. And so this will cause this issue of low progesterone, high estrogen, and your cycle can fluctuate. But if it's less than 25 days, that's likely what's happening. So I mentioned just some things you can do. You can work to get the synthetic estrogens out of your life, which would be through your diet and what you put on your skin mainly. If you're drinking tap water, you're probably drinking herbicides and pesticides as well, so make sure you're avoiding tap water. You can't go anywhere or do anything these days, right? It's so toxic. So I do saliva hormone testing, and just real quick on that, it's kind of interesting because a lot of women do blood testing for hormones. It's not very accurate related to available hormones in the body. If it's in your blood, it's already used, or it's bound to a protein being used by the body. It's not free and available. So actually the only way to check available hormones in your body is through saliva. And you can do a saliva test and you can check all the steroid hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, cortisol. And there's 3 different estrogens and it checks all of those. So to get a real good indicator on where you're at, it's really good to do a saliva test. But as we get into this, you'll see the real cause that I believe of so many of these issues. But I do believe the estrogen dominance and synthetic hormones in our world is a big, big cause of it. The reason pesticides work is they have an estrogenic effect on the bugs that's so strong it kills the bug. So again, there's no reason that should be in the human body, those chemicals. A cycle that's longer than 35 days would be another sign that the woman most likely isn't ovulating. It's more of a delayed menstrual cycle, and that's usually from a blockage. So a lot of times with that, when they do finally have the cycle, there's clotting. It's a heavy cycle. And blockages can be like, PCO. I wrote PCOS like everybody. Maybe you do, maybe you don't know what that means, but polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's cysts on the ovaries. I did a whole class, it's on my YouTube channel, called Cysts, Tumors, and Fibroids, where I explain why if you understand the lymph and the lymphatic system, no woman should have PCOS or fibroids or any breast health problems. If you understood how to take care of the lymphatic system, if our culture, if our medical system would teach women how to take care of their lymphatic systems, women wouldn't be suffering with the issues they're having today. That's what's so heartbreaking about our culture and what we've done with our system of medicine. We don't teach people health. So these blockages are big issues, and it causes the clotting and the heaviness. One of the best ways to unblock those areas to bring heat and blood flow to that pelvic region. In Chinese medicine, for example, if a woman is not having a regular cycle or she's having fertility issues, they say they have stagnant qi, which is energy in China, but stagnation. And stagnation usually means cold and poor blood flow. How many of you gals are cold all the time? Okay, probably at least half the room. So if you're cold all the time, low body temperature, low thyroid, weak immune system, you're gonna have stagnation in your body. So the way you combat that is you do all things warm. You drink hot tea all day. You get on like this lymph machine that we have in there. You start doing Pilates or yoga or whatever kind of movement exercise you can do to bring heat and circulation and blood flow into your body. Heating pads in the pelvic area. Castor oil packs. Palma Christi in Latin is palm of Christ is what they call castor oil. It's amazingly healing for the pelvic region, gallbladder, stones, sludge, buildup, congestion, heals the back, the spine. I mean, I'm a big fan of castor oil packs. But again, it's all about creating heat and circulation and movement in that stagnant area of where your reproductive organs are. And we'll get more into what that area is, but it's lymph. There's a lot of lymphatic vessels down there, and there gets mucus buildup and congestion down there. So number 2 is color. So it should be bright red like cranberry juice. Okay, that should be the color of the blood, and there shouldn't be any clots. Any signs of any clotting is an issue. Again, it's this issue of stagnation. It's the issue of the buildup and the body not being able to release. So that would be if it's a darker red turning almost, like a brownish black color or a brownish color, that could be a sign of clotting. It should last, the bleeding actually should last for 4 to 7 days. I did read a research study that showed that 5 days, not that, anything's perfect, but they did say that 5 days is optimal for fertility, for a woman's health. But it should be in that 4 to 7 day range. So again, if it's 1 or 2 days, or if it's going on for 10, 12, 14 days, that's a problem. You're going to get really weak. You know how many women are anemic and don't know it? Or they are anemic and they have all the signs, but the blood work at the doctor doesn't show they're anemic, so they don't do anything for it. Well, that's silly. If you have the signs for low thyroid, if you have the signs for anemia, take something. Take plant-based. I've seen plant-based iron for $12 bring women back to life. Wow. Because they're so heavily bleeding and losing all that blood and all those minerals and all that oxygen, and you need to replace those things, and you also need to regulate your cycle. Should be a steady flow, not excessive. And again, with the excessive flow, kind of like with the clotting, a lot of times you have these issues, the PCOS, the fibroids, the estrogen dominance, endometriosis, which is unfortunately too common thing today, where the lining of the tissue actually gets damaged and starts to spread in different parts of the body where it shouldn't be. Infectious issues is another possible cause. So number 3, mucus. Interesting one here. Now, so I have learned a lot about mucus in the last 6 months. Because I think I even put the website on here. If you're here, there'll be people maybe watching this later on YouTube that aren't in Kansas City, but there's a place called Fertility Care KC, and I wrote that down as letter D. And what's cool is that's a Catholic organization who's big on pro-life, right? And they're also big on natural family planning. And so I think it's really valuable for any woman, but I would say couple, to learn how the female menstrual cycle works, how to know when you're ovulating and when you're not, how to know when you can, trying to think of how to word this, how you can attempt to have a child or attempt to not have a child without using, contraceptives or birth control or some of these things. I don't know, do I need to explain how dangerous and horrible birth control is in here? I seriously, I've said this in my classes before, I think it should be criminal for any doctor to recommend birth control to a human being. It is that dangerous. It destroys a woman's fertility. It increases her risk for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And to use that and call that medicine, to me is criminal. And you don't need to do it. That's the thing. There's so many other ways that you can do these things. So natural family planning is really cool because you'll really get to learn through understanding your mucus when you are or are not ovulating. And so this program is available very affordably. Can we save questions to the end? Is that okay? Thank you. This program is super affordable. They're incredibly knowledgeable and helpful. I don't know if it's in other cities or what is out around there, but more and more of this stuff is popping up. So I would just encourage you, whether you're single or whether you're married or whatever, is just understand your cycle, especially related to the mucus. So the fluids are going to change throughout that cycle. And there's something called peak type mucus. Now, it's not always like this, and it was really challenging when we first learned about this because my wife was actually breastfeeding. So her cycle was not, she wasn't even having a cycle yet, and we're trying to figure out the mucus and all this. So we learned the hard way because she was breastfeeding while we were trying to figure this out. It's much easier if you're not pregnant or nursing. You wouldn't really even do it if you're pregnant. But the peak type mucus is a very likely sign of ovulation. Again, not always, but it is a good indicator that you're ovulating. And you actually can potentially get pregnant 3 days before or 3 days after that peak type mucus, because the sperm can live in that mucus for up to 3 days. So that peak type mucus is clear usually, and it's long and stretchy. You know, so now I'm a little cautious when my wife's in the wet restroom and she's like, "Hey honey, come look at this." You know, she's showing me her long stretchy mucus, you know, peak type mucus. So you can just have fun with it, you know, it's part of who you are. So it literally looks like an egg white. That's how you know. It's stretchy and clear, and it looks like an egg white. And so again, that's called peak type, and that's a not always, but again, it's a good possibility of ovulation. Symptoms. This is a big one for me because this is again where I think a lot of women have just assumed that it's normal to have all these symptoms. Everybody else seems to have it. Again, I get excited when I work with a woman who has lots of symptoms related to her cycle, and each month I can see her get better. I can see the symptoms get better, to the point sometimes where having a menstrual cycle is just a normal part of life that doesn't overly consume your life for those few days. And that's powerful when it's something that you deal with every single month. So I wrote down some of the symptoms. I don't know if any of you could possibly relate to any of these, maybe not, but PMS, anxiety, that was a joke, by the way, cramping, acne, food cravings, bloating, anemia, intense fatigue, which can be anemia, breast pain and swelling. That's a question I always have on my questionnaire that everybody fills out is, do you have breast tenderness or swelling? Because if that happens around your menstrual cycle, that's a sign that you have lymphatic system congestion. So let me tell you what this means so that you can understand what's happening if you have any of these symptoms. So I like to think of the body as a highway system. So who knows how many miles of tubes are in the human body?
10,000.
It's a good guess.
Of blood or land?
Well over 100,000. So there's well over 100,000 miles of different tubes and pathways, the cardiovascular system, the capillaries, the lymphatic system. If you think the cardiovascular system is extensive, there's twice as much lymph as the body as there is cardiovascular. And the job of the lymphatic system is to keep the blood clean. So if the lymphatic system gets stagnant, you start to have these stagnation issues that we're talking about. And so if you think of the body of like a highway system, or like I call it like rivers of life, everything's flowing smoothly. If there is a little blockage in that system, and you open up the spillway and you start putting more things into that system that's already congested, you're going to feel that. So that's what happens with pregnancy. That's what happens with your menstrual cycle. I always say it's like releasing all these hormones and this extra blood flow into a system that's congested. It's going to cause these symptoms of pain, swelling, tenderness, the mood swings, the food cravings. So many of these things are related to what I just usually simply call all the time a blocked or congested highway system. And so what you want to do is you want to open that up. So the lymphatic system is the key system in the body for women's hormones and your menstrual cycle. And the liver is the key organ. So if a woman would work on their liver and work on the lymphatic system, you could improve your health greatly overall. I mean, what's great for women is that you have this monthly cycle and you kind of know where you're at. Guys don't have that. Maybe that's why they always think they're okay when they're really not. I don't know. But yeah, working on the lymph, working on the liver are absolutely crucial to this issue. And I see this a lot with pregnancy. My wife, we already knew she kind of had some liver stuff going on, and then pregnant with our first baby, we didn't get it diagnosed, but you'd call it cholestasis, all over body itching. She had a lot of liver congestion, and it manifests when you're pregnant. Because again, you got more blood flow, you're tripling your blood volume to build this baby. Got all these hormones being released. So health issues you already had get exacerbated with pregnancy and get exacerbated through your monthly cycle when it comes. So again, it can tell you where your health is really at. A gal who was here earlier, who just left, I'm going to just share this real quick because it's a really neat story, but her name's Hannah. Do you guys know Hannah Bailey? Okay. So when she came to work for us, her and her husband, Seth, had been trying to get pregnant for a few years, and they had not. And when she came to work here, now I've seen a lot of women who couldn't get pregnant. So when she came to work here, I said, oh, this is great. I love the fact that you're going to come work for us. It's going to be amazing. But one day you will get pregnant and you will have a baby and you won't be with us anymore. And they will admit, so I feel like I can safely say this, is I feel like my wife and I had more faith about that than they did, because they had been trying for a few years and nothing. And so I just know that God designed women to have a menstrual cycle and to have babies, and there's no reason they shouldn't be able to do that. No matter what a doctor says, no matter how many times you've been told you're infertile, you don't have to believe that. Amen. And also what a lot of people don't know is half the time it's the men. Always assume it's the woman. But men have really bad health, poor sperm count, low motility. Most men aren't doing much for their health. So yeah, she came to work here, total blessing. I mean, she is just amazing. Her and Seth, I just love them so much. And yeah, she worked here for, it would have been 3 years. Yeah, so she was here for 2 years, worked on her health, nutrition, cleansing, and she got pregnant. And she did the lymphatic system cleanse. If you heard Hannah's talk earlier, she talked about when she did the liver cleanse, it's like her skin just started glowing. All of her acne went away. Her skin was just amazing after that. So for Hannah, she'd been going after her health for a while, and she did the lymphatic system cleanse, which is a 21-day cleanse, and she had said, I am going to just extend it. I'm going to do it for 30 days. On the 28th day of that cleanse, she got pregnant. So that's a really neat story. So she had her baby, February 1st, somewhere in there. So what is it now? So yeah, like 6-7-week-old little baby. What's really cool too is that she said when her mom was pregnant with her, her mom had all kinds of symptoms and struggles and nausea and just a really rough pregnancy. Well, not only did Hannah get pregnant because she worked so hard on her health, she's like, my pregnancy's been amazing. I feel great. So again, this is just a real blessing, and it's also just a real testament to that you can do something about all this, that you can take control over your health and your body. And, again, it's partnering with God. That's why I've done all those classes I've done over the years about partnering with God and just working with creation, working with how we're designed. The medical system works against how you're designed. I'm not saying they can't save a life, but the drugs they use, the therapies they use, the things they do, especially related to fertility, work against God's design of the human body. I'm not shy about saying that just because I've only said it like 50 times before this. So we really want to cooperate with God's design of the body. And the way you cooperate with God's design of the body and have a healthy menstrual cycle is you clean out the buildup of the waste, the toxins, the mucus, the gunky junk, the gallstones. Gallbladder surgery is the #1 surgery in America. You got to clear that junk out if you want to have healthy cycles and healthy skin and all these things. We're really big on nutrition, and we're really big on cleansing. And I like to joke about the irony of how the two most important things for human health, nutrition and cleansing, are the two things talked about least in the medical industry. And in fact, they almost joke about it. Now that should be frightening. And it's because they've been trained on their drug therapies as a solution. But again, God is the solution. How you're already designed is the solution. And so we just need to cleanse. We just need to cleanse and learn how to do that. So I don't know if I got off or not. Where am I? So symptoms. Yeah, I said that. Traffic trying to force its way through a traffic jam. That's what I call when you have all those symptoms around your cycle. Excessive traffic, trying to get through a traffic jam. This is actually just kind of a little sheet that I wrote up from a prior class that I did, I don't know when, about hormones and hormone balancing. So you can kind of read through that and it gives you some ideas. I have a few products here because a lot of times I get in trouble because I say all these things and then people are like, I still don't know what to do. Like that made sense, but like, what do I do? So the practical steps are sometimes helpful. I will say we've made it easy in that we have cleanses that we've created. Has anybody done any of our cleanses before? Oh my gosh, a lot of you, like half of you. So we have a colon cleanse, a kidney cleanse, a liver cleanse, a lymphatic system cleanse, a microbe cleanse, a heavy metal cleanse. But again, for the sake of this, like I usually recommend people start with the colon cleanse if you've never done it, but the lymphatic system is key. The liver is key. If you're gonna do a juice fast or something like really intense, I would encourage you to do that like in the summer. When it's warmer out, do it in season. If you're gonna do something in the winter or now, you could do a combination, but I like doing like hot water all day, eating soups and steamed vegetables, and just fasting minimally, but on warm cooked foods. Remember I talked about heat, circulation, stagnation, movement. So we have a blend out there called digestive fire. I love that stuff. Anything that brings those heating herbs into the body is going to increase circulation. So this pelvic area, and again, if you talk about cysts, tumors, fibroids, a lot of these issues women are having, it's a stagnation issue in the pelvic region. Okay, that's it. It's that simple. It's stagnation in the pelvis. If the river's free flowing, there's no reason to have abnormal growths in the human body, right? It's like your fish tank. Why is my fish tank growing that weird stuff in it? Well, you haven't cleaned it out for 6 months. That's why your fish are dead. So, you actively have to move, cleanse, do things to unlock the stagnation down there. I mentioned the castor oil packs already. Again, I'll highlight a lymphatic system cleanse, a liver cleanse. If you're going for heat and movement, you might incorporate the heating herbs. So the digestive fire is cumin, cardamom, coriander, fennel. If you like garlic, if you like cayenne, if you like curries, those warming spices are very, very, very good. I'm gonna just share a few products with you just because it's kind of fun. I love BioRaise stuff, so I'll just start there. Loving Energy is their adrenal formula, so it's like overall hormonal support, but adrenal specifically. So if you do Loving Energy with before the flow and after the flow, they actually have products called Before the Flow and After the Flow. So you start taking before the flow like 7 days before your cycle, up into like a couple days into the bleeding. And then you can switch to the after the flow. And women who do before the flow and after the flow and like adrenal, Loving Energy, or liver life, liver support, your menstrual cycle after their experience BioRaise is after about 3 months, women's menstrual cycles normalize. And so that's one way you can go is you can do BioRaise stuff. I love all the BioRaise stuff because they focus on kids a lot and women, kids mainly. There's not a lot of companies that really focus on kids' health, so I love their stuff. So that's the BioRay. I'll mention this. This is an oldie but a goodie. So I met my wife. She hadn't had a menstrual cycle in 2 years, right? I gave her this Restore. Take 4 at night before bed. She started her menstrual cycle. And we have 3 kids. So I like the Restore. It's a very simple herbal formula. It's actually designed by a woman that I worked with who's a master herbalist out in Las Vegas when I lived out there during the crazy, stupid part of my life. So that's the Restore. That's a fun one. I like the FemMate. This is a Chinese herbal formula. So it's called FemMate because it's for women, right? But it's mainly liver herbs. So this is a Chinese formula full of liver herbs. And again, if you work on your liver, you cleanse your liver, I think it was mentioned in a class prior, but if you're eating lots and lots of fats, heavy fats, eating lots of nuts and seeds, and even the healthy fats, it's going to create lymph and liver stagnation in your body. So I really encourage people not to overconsume fats because it can cause more blockage issues. But the worst blocker, what's the worst thing that you can eat that's going to block up your lymphatic system in your liver? Dairy. See, you guys are so good. So the FemMate's a cool product. I've used that for years. I'll tell you what, if you want to just talk about regulating the cycle, and you're like, I'm not going to do a 30-day liver cleanse, like that's crazy. Let me pray about that. So NHI, Natural Health International, this company is really cool. These are all maca-based products. There's 14 different kinds of maca. Some are better for different things, and they've studied it. They even have studies on their website you can read. This Maca Harmony I've given to a lot of women who either aren't having their cycle or they're having irregular cycles, like it's 14 days and then 37 days, and it's like all over the place. So this is really good for fertility. If you're not having a cycle, if you have an irregular cycle, it's the Maca Harmony. It gives you instructions exactly how to take it. And then they have the Maca Pause, which is postmenopausal. And so all the issues women have postmenopause, like bone density, vaginal dryness, the hot flashes, the night sweats, it helps with all of that. They've even done studies to prove that it helps with all that. And not a lot of companies do that because it's expensive to do studies and things and actually have them published. So I love, if you just want one thing, like the Maca Harmony is awesome, probably for most of you are a little bit younger, or the Maca Pause for postmenopause. Fibrovera is what it sounds. Fibro as in fibro, if you've heard of fibroids, okay, cysts, fibroids. It actually breaks down and balances the hormones and breaks down those growths. So you can take enzymes and different things that can actually help break down those growths in the body. If you've heard of fibromyalgia, you've heard of that one? So fibrin is a protein that builds up in the muscles. It's scar tissue built up in the muscles. So if you can take something that breaks down that fibrin, that scar tissue, those people will get out of pain. So I used a product for that for years called Nepronol. It's systemic enzymes. So the Fibrovera is good for all the cysts and all that stuff. Porphyria, that's your progesterone cream. So again, if you are having an irregular cycle, especially one that's less than 25 days, a lot of times the progesterone deficiency, you can check that through a saliva test. But just doing a progesterone cream is very helpful. So many women are estrogen dominant that it's causing the progesterone and estrogen can help balance each other. So when you're really high in estrogen, a lot of times the progesterone's low. So just this can help balance out a lot of women. I even give this to women post-menopause. You know what progesterone means? Progestation. So if you're post-menopause, you don't necessarily need this to have a baby, right? But because women after menopause have all those symptoms from their livers being congested and the estrogen dominance, all those issues are being highlighted because now the progesterone is less in the body. And so the obvious symptoms of the liver congestion and estrogen deficiency is what all of those postmenopausal symptoms are. Again, they're not supposed to be normal. And I even give a progesterone cream to women post-menopause because it'll bring that estrogen back into balance and it'll take away a lot of those symptoms. Cool. So, you can go through this list. I think I talked about a lot of it. Cleanse the liver and the lymph, water, hydration, and minerals. I didn't mention the biocean minerals, but I'll just throw this one at you because it's fun. These are ocean minerals. If you evaporate the sodium out of ocean water, so this is God's design, right? We're 75% water. The earth is 75% water. And the mineral composition of ocean water is the exact same mineral composition as human blood. During World War I and II, when they ran out of blood plasma because they were short, they would put ocean water in people and it would save their lives. So there's a guy, what's that guy's name? Forgot his name. Anyway, there's a French guy, late 1800s, working with a lot of women with fertility issues, hormone issues, a lot of babies being born with deformities and things. He would give them the ocean minerals and it would go away. He would see eczema clear up. He'd see women who couldn't have babies start having babies again. And it's because if you put minerals in the body, you move things in the body. You got better circulation. You got better blood flow. You got better hydration. With hydration comes better circulation and blood flow. The ocean minerals clean out the lymphatic system. Who swam in the ocean? Who had mucus coming out of your body when you were swimming in the ocean? From the salt water. So those things are very cleansing and healing to the body. And so the minerals are very balancing for that. So that's something I give to a lot of women if they're just, again, struggling with fertility or just want something good to take throughout their pregnancy. The minerals are really important, especially as deficient as we are these days. So yeah, I kind of mentioned quite a few of these things. So you can just look at that for future reference. I'll take some questions. I kind of went through that fairly quick for me. Maybe it's because it's been so long since I've done a class. I know you had a question.
When you were talking about mucus earlier, did you mean cervical mucus, not nose mucus?
Correct. Thank you. Yeah, just check your mucus to see. No. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for confirming that because I didn't say that. Cervical mucus. Thank you. I probably confused like half the room. They're like, how does my mucus, like, yes.
What about spotting before your period?
It'd be the same kind of thing. It's usually low progesterone. Usually. Now, there can be a little bit, but if it's excessive or a lot or it's all the time, it's usually low progesterone mainly.
Is that the same for like after your cycle?
Yes. In general, it's low progesterone, estrogen dominance.
What was
Yes.
the question?
Spotting. Yes.
When symptoms during pregnancy, what can you do if you're already pregnant and you're like,
Oh,
I have a friend
Great question.
that has been hospitalized every single time for her pregnancy because it's
Oh.
so bad. She literally cannot function. And so I'd like to try to have some answers for her.
Amen. Okay. So I'm just going to reiterate, and I don't want to say 100%. I'll say like 90% of all these issues are congestion and stagnation in the human body. Now, I know the pesticides and the synthetic estrogens, I know that stuff messes us up. It's all stagnation and congestion issues. The spotting ultimately is a stagnation and congestion issue. If a woman's horribly nauseous, I mean, I've known women who can't even keep water down during their pregnancy. So I'll tell you about a gal. She's a friend of ours, so I'm definitely not going to say her name, but she'd had multiple children. She was pregnant with like her fifth or something. She was always nauseous. And I said, hey, if you ever get nauseous during your pregnancy, just do an enema. She's like, okay. She had this horrible headache, migraine. She was pregnant. I said, did you try an enema? No, I haven't tried that. She suffered for another like month. She's like, okay, I'll do it. She did one enema, and she's like, yeah, I'm like 90% better. It just went away.
Wow. That's true.
So it's congestion. You said it's true?
Yeah.
It's congestion. It's stagnation. And what happens is because of all the stresses on your body through pregnancy and having a baby and the increased blood volume, your stagnation issues start screaming at you. So you just need to stop eating the dairy, the heavy fatty foods, even the healthy fats. Get away from the nuts all the time. Get away from the avocado all the time. Cleanse the colon out first, mainly. We have a gentle liver cleanse tea to start working on the liver. So I'd have her work on her colon, work on her liver, and just avoid heavy foods. I mean, healthy or not healthy, avoid heavy
So
foods.
it's safe to cleanse during pregnancy?
Yes, so with pregnancy, so the question is it safe to cleanse during pregnancy? Is what I tell pregnant women. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, colon cleanse, kidney cleanse, or the gentle liver cleanse tea. Don't do all the those lymph herbs are crazy strong. Don't get into some crazy parasite cleanse or heavy metal cleanse. Don't do any of that stuff, okay? I mean, my wife didn't even do a heavy metal cleanse when our first daughter was born with mercury toxicity. To do a mercury detox with her at the age of 2 because she was crying because her legs hurt so bad she couldn't walk anywhere and she couldn't sleep at night. And we did a mercury detox and that all went away. Hallelujah. So don't do those intense type of cleanses, but definitely work on your colon, your kidneys, and work on your liver with the safe liver herbs. which is in the Gentle Liver Cleanse tea. It's your milk thistle and your schisandra berry and your yellow dock, and it's your safer herbs. Another question here?
Well, two quick questions. I did hear that you can cleanse your lymphatic system through jumping on a little trampoline.
You bet.
Okay, and then second question was, my period's only 1 to 2 days, and I'm just wondering, I mean, it's probably just a day, and so I just didn't know if that was abnormal or what that would be.
It would be the same thing. Again, it should be like that 4 to 7 day range, ideally. So again, there's probably some lymph or liver stagnation or low progesterone or something that's causing that irregularity.
$15 little trampolines, and so that's probably
So
just the bouncing method.
just jumping up and down. So she was asking about, I said, don't lymph cleanse and stuff while you're pregnant. Well, my gosh, do jumping up and down on a rebounder and do Pilates and dance classes and yoga and just, whatever gets you moving. Do all of that stuff at 100%. Absolutely. I'm talking more about like the blood root and the poke root and all those really strong lymph herbs that are in our lymph formulas. Those are too strong.
And when you're doing like those like lymphatic things, the cleansing your body, I was just wondering because sometimes I feel like stagnant when I'm actually working out or like doing Pilates.
Right.
Is that because I like to like eat ice cream and stuff like that? Do you feel like that is indicator that I've had too much sugar in my body, or?
You're saying you feel stagnation when you exercise? Yeah.
Like
So,
I feel fatigued and I try to make sure I have enough water.
right.
But sometimes I do feel fatigued when I do that.
Yeah, so she said she feels fatigued and stagnant while she's exercising. It's kind of like, have you heard of exercise-induced asthma? Okay, when you exercise and you actually create blood flow and oxygen to the body starts to get rid of all the mucus and the stuff that's causing that asthma. And what do? Take an inhaler and shove it all back in, right? So the body's designed to move and cleanse. And so when you start exercising and moving, all of a sudden you're moving stuff that's trying to get out that can't get out. So if you get away from the fat sugar combo foods, the ice cream, the donuts, any of the heavy fat sugar combos, if you eat fruits, veggies, greens, rice, quinoa, oatmeal, lean meats like chicken, turkey, fish, avoid all the rest for the most part, that'll stop happening and you'll start to feel better. And that stuff will be able to start to flush and cleanse out of your body. So,
Dairy besides that, but I'll just need to find healthy alternatives.
yeah, there's coconut ice cream, there's almond ice cream, totally.
Go seek it out.
Yep.
But that's probably my downfall.
Yep.
Is ice cream.
Yep.
Because where I used to live, there was ice cream places like every mile.
Yep.
So
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I know. Let's just do like two more.
ice cream in New York.
Let's do two more because we got another class. Mike's gonna do adrenals and thyroid specific to women's hormones. So
I had two, kind of. One of them was, is it normal for like to get nauseous like often, like the week before and after your period, like just consistently every month?
yeah, it's the same thing. It's just because that all of a sudden you got more hormones, more blood, and that's showing that your body's stagnant, and that's what's creating that nausea.
And then, how big of a gap is normal for like, because I'm not like exactly 28 days every single month or anything. Like, can it vary and still be in the range of?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like it could be 28 days and then 30 days and then something like that. Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, try to stay in that 28 to 33 day range. Again, look at your symptoms. If you're having a lot of those symptoms, then you know you need to work on cleansing. You need to work on nutrition. You need to work on the lymph. You need to work on the liver. And then it might even get even more regular. But I think if you're in that 28 to 33 day range, as long as it's not going 28, 33, like extreme swings, that's probably a good sign. But also look at the other symptoms as well. Go ahead. Yes.
I was prescribed Virtual when I was like 15
Right.
for a heavy flow, and I had been taking it for 10 years. I
Yeah.
just stopped it because I found out that it's horrible.
Hallelujah.
So, but I didn't know if I needed to just like see. I don't know what my normal period is like. So
Right.
do you recommend just waiting a little bit before
Yep.
I see what is necessary, or is there something I should be doing now?
I would just wait. I mean, the main thing with any of those drugs is they're all toxic to the liver. So just work on cleansing, maybe get the liver life, just do the liver tea, just do some good nutrition, liver support, and it'll take time. Let your body flush some of that stuff out, and then your cycle will start again, and then just kind of have to see how it goes from there. So, she said she was on birth control for about 10 years, and now that she's off, should she just wait and kind of see what happens, or maybe she could support her body right now since she just came off the birth control? It's the same with my wife. She got off birth control, but even after birth control, her cycle didn't come back, and she'd been 2 years with still no cycle. That's how bad birth control and these things can mess up the female body. So I'll do the last one.
What about a woman who consistently miscarries, has a miscarriage?
Oh, great. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah. So a woman who consistently miscarries. Okay, so if you research it, you'll find that the main women miscarry is low progesterone. Because progesterone is progestation, and that's the main hormone you need to build the uterine lining to create that baby. And so any woman who's ever miscarried, I always put on some type of progesterone cream. There's another formula out there called progesteronic that has the herbs in it that helps the body naturally produce progesterone. I encourage it throughout the whole pregnancy. Why even chance it? But again, the progesterone will help immediately, but it's the same issue. If those hormones aren't being produced and they're not flowing properly, there's congestion. And that main system, again, is that lymphatic system. So I would work on that, work on cleansing, but I would get on the progesterone right away because, if a woman's not preventing getting pregnant and she's had 1, 2, whatever miscarriages, if you get pregnant again, you want to at least be taking something that can possibly help you carry that baby through. That's crucial. Do you want to? Yeah.
That. Do you have to get tested before you start taking a progesterone cream, or is it safe to basically assume that everyone's going to be low?
You don't know everybody's low, but it's not going to hurt anything to take it. It's wild yam. Yeah, it's not. See, nothing we're going to use is going to be a chemical. It's not a drug. It's not synthetic. So the progesterone is wild yam based, so it's just herbal. So if the body needs it, it'll use it, and if it doesn't, it'll just flush it out. So you don't really have to worry about that. So, all right, thanks. Adrenals and thyroid will be next with Mike. Thank you.